Do you like forums? Me neither, but that's okay because on Fridays and on Tuesdays we are hosting therapy sessions for the people that use React Hook Forum before and Formic, so it's going to be a great time. So I'll see you guys there. But today I wanted to talk about tanstack Forum. This is kind of the new shiny kid on the block now in the JavaScript ecosystem, in the form ecosystem at least. But one of the amazing things about it is that it's framework agnostic. So unlike React Hook Form and the other ones, you're not like limited to using it in React. So we'll talk a little bit about how it compares to the other libraries out there, and we'll also put together this little shadcn example here with tanstack Form because a lot of people use that and like it, and I'll kind of show you how I do it. Before you actually install a form library in your project, and I would actually say this any library in your project, please really have think about it. Like, why do I need this? Like, what feature am I looking for that this is going to give me? Because you might run into situations where you just have a simple form with an input tag. And in a lot of those cases, you know, a simple use state to track the input is going to be totally fine. And then you can do another state for the error tracking and whatnot. But if you have something more complex, right, you might have deep fields, nested fields. You might need good TypeScript support as well. You might need async validation or maybe some debouncing functionality in it. Then you'd have to write all of that yourself, and it can get pretty hefty. So let's look at the comparison here and kind of see how it stacks up against all of these other ones. So we have tanstack Form, Formic, Redux Form, React Hook Form, and Final Form. I have never heard of this Final Form before, so I'll have a look at it, but it looks like it's a newer one because it seems to also have quite a bit of the features here present, only at 5 kilobytes as well, which is pretty cool. Okay, so out of all of these, I use tanstack Form, I use Formic, React Hook Form. I haven't really touched Redux Form anymore. I haven't really touched anything with the Redux name in front of it. Jesus Christ, PTSD all the way. But yeah, let's have a look. So first class TypeScript support. This is fantastic in tanstack Form. Formic does not have this. Redux Form does not have this. React Hook Form does. But let me tell you one thing. I'm not sure exactly what versions of React Hook Form I was working on. I think it was 4 point something, but I was running it to just TypeScript error, weird situations, especially when you had deep fields or array fields in there. The TypeScript just was off the rails. Whereas with tanstack Form, I never had this. Everything just automatically was inferred, typed perfectly, no issues whatsoever. As for the headless UI components, as you can see, tanstack Form supports it, and that's why I was a big fan of React Hook Form as well, because you can simply do a form.field, for example, which is a UI component, right? And that just holds the logic in it. So then you can do something through render props to actually get the state of the input and also the validation errors. So I really like how this works. You're gonna see it in just a second. Framework agnostic, this is a huge one for me. I don't want to touch another form library that doesn't support maybe other frameworks out there. You know, I don't know, maybe in half a year I wanna check out Svelte, I don't know. It would be nice if I can just simply take this and transfer it over. I think that's really important. Then we have granular reactivity, and as you can see, only tanstack Form and the Final Form supports this, and this is fantastic. So if I'm typing in this course title input here, only this specific input is gonna get re-rendered by React rather than the whole form itself. Next up, we have nested objects and field arrays. This is a really cool feature. I used this a ton before, and I used it in tanstack Form as well, and it works perfectly, but Formic supports it as well. React Hook Form is where I used it the most probably, and I had the most issues with as well. As you can see, we have an asterisk that might as well be a bloody red stop sign there. So when would you use this? Imagine you have an input tag, right? And you want to drag and drop in 5 different images to upload on it. What you can do is use the field array. Here it is. So you define the field array, you define a length to it, you give it a control, a name like that, and then you simply can pass in a bunch of different values or objects inside this array to essentially hold multiple values. I just didn't like working with it too much, honestly. There's so many rules and regulations on it. It feels like the EU. But more importantly, creating a form that has a field array on it, and if you want to make that reusable, it works, but you lose the types on the field array. Why? Ask hook form, not me. It works with tanstack form. Then we got async validation as well. As you can see, that's fully supported. So if you're heading a database and you want to see if the user already exists there, you can use that as well. You got a debounce built in as well, an async debounce, which is amazing. So when you type, right, you can set a timer, maybe, hey, hit the database in 300 milliseconds. Not like every character I type. So this is fantastic. Actually, none of the other libraries have this. First-party DevTools, it doesn't have it yet. I believe this is coming soon. But more importantly, the SSR integration is a big one, right? Avoid all those bloody hydration errors. We don't want to ever see them. So just kind of weighing these, right? If you just quickly squint at this and look at the pros and cons. Look at the sizes of these. We got hook form at 10 kilobytes, Redux form at 26, Formic at 13, tanstack form at 9.6. Again, we have final form. If you guys want an episode on that, I can go check it out for sure. But this absolutely sold it for me. Alrighty, let's set up a quick example here with shadcn, and I'll kind of show you how everything works. Okay, so nothing in this project, completely empty. I just have, this is tanstack start I'm running here. I installed, if you want to quickly see the package, I have a bunch installed here, but tanstack react form is what you really want, and Zod. All right, those are kind of the two important things. If we find something else, I'll let you know about it. Okay, but how do we get going with this? So we initialize the form, right? So you do form. Let's do use form. So we'll bring this in. There we go, from tanstack form. Bingo, bongo, there we go. Okay, so what do we need on this? We need two things. We need the values, right, that this form is gonna have, and we need some sort of validator. So let's start with, let's start with the validators. Validator, there we go. So let's create one. I highly recommend you to just do Zod here, honestly. So import Z from Zod, but again, you can use other ones as well, or you can just write your own. Up to you. Okay, so here, what we do now is we do curly bracket 2, because tanstack form gives you so many different ways to validate these. You can do onChange, so every time you type, it's gonna revalidate it. You can do stuff like on blur async, debounce. Gorgeous. We'll do on blur, and you're gonna see how this works. But what we do here is we pass in a schema, right? So I'm just gonna go make a simple one here. Let's call this form Zod form schema, like that. Okay, so it's gonna be a Z. Can I have my Z object? There we go. What should we pop in here? Let's see. Let's do a little title. Let's start simple, right? We're going with the title, which is a Z stringus. So there we go. Now we can take this schema and just pop it in here on the blur, Z form schema. Okay, let's add our form here. And this is the form that's here, right? And then in here, what we can do is do a form dot and check it out. So you have your fields on here. There we go. So we can do a form.field. And the way this works is you can either pass children down here like that, right? Or you can destruct it here like that, all right, which I think I like a little bit more like that. And then here you have your state if you want to pull it out. You have your on, what's it called, the handle blur. So let's simply take this, and here what I'm gonna do is add parentheses and return a fragment like that. And here's where our component comes in, right? So this is from shadcn. It's just the input component like that. I'll get in here. There we go. Let's render this out. This might error out because the name is missing. So this is where the name goes on the form field here, not on the actual input. So keep that in mind. This is going to be passed forwarded anyway. So let's add the name here, and we're going to say title for this. And as you can see, we're not getting any autocomplete as of now. So the way we can get that going is simply add our default values in. So let's do default values, and I'll do title, right? So we'll do an empty string for now, and let's see if this works now. So I can do F, let's go here, and now look at that, the title is there. Fantastic. Now, if I change the title to 20, it's not really gonna catch the type error here. As you can see, title becomes a number, which is not what we want. So what we can do on the default values here at the end, you can say as, and then I can simply pass in a type of this form schema. So we can generate that. I can do type, let's do T form schema for this, and you can just simply infer it from there. So I can do Z infer and simply do a generic here, and I can pass down type of Z form schema like that, okay? So pass that down like that, and then let's head over to the as there. There we go. And now here what I want to do is just simply T form schema, right? Pass that down like that. And look, now it catches it. So title is going to error out. So if we have a look here, see title is string, and that's going to throw an error. If we hover over here as well, you're going to see that title number to type string is not assignable. It's a mistake. Grave danger. So there we go. There's our input, as you can see. Now, a lot of people, when they use shadcn, especially like what I found with tanstack start, is that they create these nice wrappers around it, but I honestly don't think you need like 2 layers of abstraction here. The input tag in shadcn is just a simple a simple function here, right? A simple component that essentially just combines a bunch of class names together, and that's pretty much it. So I don't really see the reason to do like these heavy abstractions. I was really like looking into this, seeing kind of like how other people hooked it up, and it just seemed like much more code than it actually needed to be. And what I mean by that is, check this out. We have a label form here, and what we do is we do these crazy TypeScript gymnastics to essentially try to pull out like the context of the form. So you can simply pass down the errors to the labels, and then you can highlight them in any way you want. But look at all this code, right? All this code to just simply wrap the form context around shadcn. Whereas I think it's much more simple to just go here and do it yourself, and the code is actually going to be a bit less, if not, honestly. So check this out. What we can do is simply go here, and what's the most important things that we need to pass this? One is going to be the value, right? So let's pass the value, and that's coming from state.value. So it's as simple as that. Then we need to pass in the onBlur, so we can simply do handle blur on that, and then the onChange as well, and we can say handle change. And in here, we just need to pass target value. We all know this one, right? There we go. Okay, let's hit save and see what we got. So we got 20 there for some reason. There we go. Let's start typing. All is fine and dandy. However, would be nice to also have a label here and also pretty much put out like a error message, right? When we run into a validation issue. So let's do a label. Again, this is from shadcn. It doesn't have anything special. I'll show it again. So let's call this title. There we go. If we have a look here, again, as you can see, it doesn't have much other than the flex, some text small on it, some selection stuff, and that's it. As for the error message, honestly, I'm a big fan just doing a simple p tag here and outputting the message. But how can we actually get this? So I don't want to display this p tag unless I have an error message. So let's just do a wrapping here and say, if the, what do I want? If the state meta, this is where you can get the errors from, the errors, the length, let's say it's bigger than 0, then we definitely have an error. And what I also want to do is say if the state meta is touched, like that, okay? So I don't want this to pop up every time an error comes up on a component. I want to make sure that it's actually been touched, right? It's been clicked on and then clicked off of or whatever. It's just been messed around with. So I'm going to do that. And then here now I can say, if that's true, then let's output this little p tag here. Otherwise, don't output anything. So just do null. Okay. Now here we can simply do state.meta.errors. And honestly, for this one, I'm just going to pull out the first error message since I know for a fact that I only have one anyway. So there we go, pull out the first one, and then here we get the message on it. So let's output that. Okay, let's try it. Type. Nothing happens, delete. But look, as soon as I click off of it, look, the error message pops up. See? So if I go here, type, click off of it, boom, it disappears. Okay, so that's because of the onBlur here that we added on top. Ed, but this sucks. It doesn't have any of the nice colors and stuff like that, right? To show that this is red, it's invalid. That's why I'm saying I'm not even bothering with these wrappers because what do you really need here? The shadcn input already has an area invalid on it, which also displays to all the, what's it called? To all the screen readers as well, which is really great. So why don't we just use that to style this up? So here we go. This is how we can do it. So let's go here. I'm gonna say area invalid. And when is this invalid? Well, simply when we have error messages or this has been touched. So let's simply pass that in there and hit save. Okay, let's give this another go. So I'm typing, everything's fine. I'm clicking off of it, everything's fine. I'm removing messages, click off of it. Look at that. We get area invalid and it actually turns it red. So how cool is that? And then you can apply the same thing to the p tag here if you want or whatever. You can do a class name, for example, and set this equal to, and I'm gonna do an object here. I'm gonna say if the state message. And what you can actually do is even take all of this and just make it into its own little variable to keep this a bit shorter. But that's all you like really need to reuse here. So if all of this is true, then I can do something like, well, then I want to do a BG of, sorry, not BG, but a text of destructive like that. Otherwise, null, right? I don't want any kind of special thing on it. And there we go. Look at that. Now, when I type and click off of it, it goes red. And let me also show you here, because we did on blur. What if we change this to on change? On change. There we go. Let's hit save. Now, as soon as I type, and the characters are 6 characters long, it should work. I don't know why it didn't. There we go. I needed a refresh. But look, as soon as I start typing now and reaches 6, it automatically goes off. So those are the differences that you can try. Also, when you're working here, I added another input that's a type of number, and that's totally fine here. But when you're doing the on change here, make sure you pass this as a number instead of a string. Otherwise, it's gonna error out. But you can use this value as number, which is pretty cool. So there we go. Put this in. So it takes whatever it was in that input and just converts it over for you. Okay, cool. Now, how can we actually submit this form? Well, let's go here to the bottom, still inside the form field. What we can do is do a form.subscribe here like that. So let's do that. And then in here, what we can do is we can grab the selector. And as you can see, that selector is going to give us access to the form state. So selector. There we go. And then here, we're going to have access. Let me see, we might need to run this like this so it pops up. There we go. Is submitted, for example, is submitting. And look at all of these other different things that you can pull out from here. Now that we have the selections ready here, what we can do is kind of do the same thing as we did before with render props. So I can do curly brackets and then parentheses and run a function here. And then here, again, we can pull out all those amazing values. And this is pretty much the way I did it. I added a disabled on it, so on can submit, and if the form is submitting, we don't want to be able to click it. And then we can also change the text here, so a ... when it's submitting. Okay, so that's all hooked up. That looks all nice and dandy. Make sure we have the type of submit here as well, so the form actually triggers. And we can define a on submit here. So let's define the on submit. Can run a simple arrow function. And from here on out, you can simply extract all the values. So if we do a console log value, and then from here you can save to your DB or whatever, right? There we go. So let's give this a go. Let's open up the side panel. Let's expand this out. And actually there's one thing that we didn't do before this works. We defined the on submit here, but this is never actually gonna run. So you actually have to go to the form here and say on submit. There we go. And what you actually want to also do is cancel like the default behavior of this. So actually, I highly recommend you to just run an arrow function in here and then add the E and then do e.prevent default like that. And e.prevent stop propagation, not prevent. There we go. And then you can simply call form.handle submit. All right, that's actually going to trigger this in here. All right, let's give that a go and see how it is. Inspect. All right, so let's give this a go. So if I don't have any values, I shouldn't be able to submit. Great. If I have values, this should also say ... when I'm submitting. It doesn't, but at least this went through. So that's great. But the ... is not there. I actually think it doesn't work because it goes too quickly. Let me just try this. I'll make a new promise here. And let's set time out And I'm gonna do res. Let's do a second here. I just want to block this really quickly. Await here at the beginning, right? Does that do it? I wonder. Submit. Oh, let's add the value. Submit. Yeah, look at that. We got the dot 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 there. Okay, so it's just because this all ran synchronously and it ran super quickly, so we didn't even get to see it. But there we go. Look how simple this is. Look how juicy. Goodness sakes, web development is exciting. I must tell you, ever since tanstack start come out, I can tell you how much I'm like fired up about it. So that's kind of a quick overview about it. Let me know what you think. Do you enjoy it? Do you like it? And I'll catch you in the next episode. Peace.